find a mentor, whether you're paying for it or whether there's someone that's ahead of you that will do it on a voluntary basis, but find someone that is modeling the kind of success you want, secure their advice, and do what they tell you. And do it despite the fact that you're uncomfortable. You may not know how it's going to require you to grow, but all those things are necessary if you're a new entrepreneur. The person that was an employee, no matter how entrepreneurial an employee, is not the same as the person who is an employer and who's running a business. And you need to make that transformation.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Tara Brown. And Tara started out her journey in junior high, skipping from 7th grade to 9th grade, also going to an alternative school and did multiple schools to get all the classes she wanted, after which went off to MIT to do undergraduate with the focus on math and science, and before switching over, finding that she liked physics, and went into architecture as undergraduate. And then went off to Yale for graduate school, got licensed in 99 as an architect, took off some time for kids in 2006. Divorce came along in 2007, got a life coach, went into coaching yourself, and also went back into architecture. And so has continued to do full-time architecture and doing coaching on the side until pivoting to do coaching full-time, and likes to coach architects. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Tara.
Hey, thanks, Devin. It's great to be here with you today. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Excited to have you on and have a great conversation. So I just gave a quick overview to a much longer journey, but why don't we go ahead and rewind a bit and unpack that a bit. So tell us a little bit about how your journey got started in 7th grade, skipping to 9th grade.
Yeah, I actually went to a very unusual elementary school, which allowed me to complete 7th and 8th grade in 1 year. And if you knew about it, it's a free school with no classes, no structured homework, no nothing, no exams for 10 years. And why that matters is it created a lifelong love of learning with me that would create ambitions and goals that I didn't know would be hard to achieve because no one was around to tell me that they would be hard. So I finished high school class valedictorian for my small school. As you mentioned, my school was so small, K-12, 400 students, 20 people in my graduating class, and they didn't have math beyond algebra 2 or science beyond biology. So I had to go to 2 other high schools to grab chemistry and physics. I went to university for summer for trig, and went to community college to grab calculus as a senior in high school. And all of that showed up and enabled me to get into a place like MIT as an early admit, actually. And so I got in early, and they wooed me, they won me. And so I went as an undergrad. As you mentioned, love math and science, always have, and discovered a passion for drawing when I was in 2nd semester of physics, studying electricity and magnetism, making A's in the science, but realized I cared more about drawing the diagrams. And that's what led me to look at architecture as a career path, looking for that blend of art and science. I'd later learned that it was more of a blend of art and business, but at the time it looked like art and science. Got my undergraduate degree, got some work experience under my belt, and then went on to Yale for that master's in architecture as my professional degree. Thought I wanted to be a professor. That was why I chose Yale, was looking towards an academic path. And full disclosure, when I saw the way faculty treated each other, I decided that maybe I wanted to go the professional path. And so that's what I did. And I ended up landing in healthcare architecture and building multiple hospitals, big projects.
Now, maybe just diving into a bit and jumping it just a little bit back in the journey. Because
Sure.
I mean, on the one hand, I get, hey, figured out I have a passion, enjoy drafting, enjoy drawing and all of that. And yet at the same time, that's a for at least typically would be a large departure from math and science. Now I get architecture has a lot of that in there, how you set up the
Right.
building and that, but how did, as you're shifting those gears or going in a different direction, how did you figure that out? Or, how did you figure out architecture was the place where you could apply those skills?
That I had a mentor. We had freshman advisors, and I sat there and I worked with a mentor. And I can't recommend enough working with someone that's gone down the path before you to help you make decisions when you don't know any better. Because, for example, what I wouldn't realize until my 40s is I was a first gen college student. My dad's a chiropractor, but he went to chiropractic college. My mom was a nurse, but she went to nursing school. Neither went to university. So I didn't know how to navigate a place like MIT or take advantage of it as a first gen. And so what I did do is talk to my advisor, my academic advisor, and I took classes both in mechanical engineering and architecture, and just kind of compared my level of satisfaction with each. And then at the time, chose architecture as a career path. Um, and Later on, I did some career testing, and then we did some aptitude testing. And one of the tests was a spatial test.
Hmm.
And the guy who did it, we had to take images of unfolded boxes, fold them up in our imagination, and pick which one was correct. And I remember when I got the results on the phone from the guy who did that test, I was about 34 at the time. And so I'd finished all these degrees. And he said, Tara, in this test, in the spatial test, I've never before had a woman above 75 in all my years of doing this. You were a 99.
Hmm.
And meaning my gift, I didn't know I had it, is seeing things in 3 dimensions, being able to solve 3-dimensional problems in my imagination, then communicating that back and be able to pick, back to other people. So it was the way I was wired. So in that sense, it was a really good choice. But I wouldn't have known that at 18 years old.
No, makes perfect sense, and sounds like with some good mentorship and guidance, we're setting you on a path that you enjoyed and were successful in. So you go and make that pivot or that shift a bit. Come out of undergraduate. I think you went to graduate school at Yale, and
Yes.
then, as you mentioned, said okay, coming out into the industry. So did you go right into? You said designing buildings for healthcare or for hospitals, or how did you get started in the architecture industry?
So I got my first job was actually with a small to mid-sized firm, and they did not do healthcare. And so I had moved from New Haven, Connecticut to Charlotte, North Carolina. Full disclosure, I followed the man I was dating. That's what took me to Charlotte. And so I worked for a firm. I had interned there a couple summers through graduate school, moved to Charlotte right after I graduated, and worked there for a year and doing many different kinds of, but mostly office. And they did military. Had a really interesting experience that I think um, people often wonder what architects do. And this interesting experience that happened to me at 20 to 26, 27 can kind of start to explain it. So I was working for the design of a meeting room for the Charlotte Douglas International Airport. I know the
Hmm.
airport's still there. Don't know if the meeting room still is because it's been a long time ago. But
Hmm.
but designed this meeting room, finished the working drawings or construction drawings, as we call them, and then I moved to Phoenix. I moved to Phoenix back in '94, right? So this is a long time ago. And I'll come back to how I got into healthcare architecture after this pivot. Had the opportunity after a year of being here in Phoenix, of going back to Charlotte, and I got to see that room, that project I designed, having been built and being constructed. And when I walked into the room, I had a deja vu experience. It was like one of those hair standing up on end experiences because I walked into this room and I realized I'd already been there. And that got my attention at 27 years old,
Hmm.
was that I realized that what I really did as an architect was I occupied the future in my imagination, and then the rest of the world caught up to it through construction. And that's often what we do. And so I'd come back to, so I moved to Phoenix, and how I got into healthcare was, frankly, it was 93. We were coming out of a recession and I got a job, and the job was healthcare. I wasn't planning on doing healthcare. I didn't know I wanted to do healthcare. And in fact, a couple of years later, I would stop doing healthcare because I wanted to do higher design work. And I did work in corporate commercial for a year. And honestly, I hated it because compared to healthcare, where doctors, nurses, the teams really cared about the quality of environment, physical environment, because they knew that the physical environment positively or adversely impact the way a patient experiences their care and the way they heal. In
Mm.
corporate commercial, we were just putting 40, can we get 40 desks in here? That's all I cared about. How many bodies can I get in? And so for me, it was soulless work. And then 9/11 would happen. And I was not doing healthcare architecture when 9/11 happened. And I took a good hard look at that. And I knew that, you know, had bodies made it to the emergency department, of course they didn't, right? But had they made it, I wasn't going to be the doctor or the nurse. I was working in the trauma unit, but I knew how to design those units. I knew how to work with that very complicated client. And that
Mm.
pulled me back. That was when I committed to healthcare architecture, was really 9/11 was that committed. And I would work in healthcare architecture until last year. Yeah.
No, it makes sense. And so now I think that the one thing that you hit on as well is I think, because I think that, or and correct me where I'm wrong if I'm putting words in your mouth, but where you end up getting into some of life coaching was you took a stint off raising kids, ended up taking some time off, but and then going through a divorce, and ended up getting a life coach, which kind of set you on, or at least in part, on the path to get into the coaching arena.
That is correct. Yeah. So when I had twins, and I was privileged enough to actually be able to have my twins born in the hospital that I was designing. And so that was an interesting experience as an architect. And after when I came back to work, I went back to work for 3 months. And for the women in your audience, I gave myself a 3 month timeline. And every single day I went to the office, I cried. Every day for 3 months, but I hit the pause button. And at the end of 3 months, I was netting $10,000 based on all the costs to be a mom, a working mom. And it just didn't make sense. So financially, it didn't make sense. From a heart standpoint, it didn't make sense. So I took time off, and I actually was out of the workforce for 2008 to 2014. Not a bad time to not practice architecture. I used to joke that the gap in my resume is the same as everybody else's because they were all laid off. Um, and then I came back. Yes, divorce brought me back in 2015. How I found coaching was, it was 3 weeks into the divorcing process, not sleeping at night because I didn't know how I was going to make a living. I didn't know how I was going to bring things forward. And I had heard about this coaching program years before. I'd kind of filed it away as plan B in case things didn't work. And well-meaning people were telling me, you're not going to get a job in architecture. You don't have the skills, right? I didn't have the technology anymore. I didn't have the software. And so I signed up for life coaching. I needed a positive place to park my mind. I needed somewhere forward that could get me out of the mental space that I was in, which was at risk of not being a very hospitable place. So I
Mm.
did that. I signed up for coaching, and then I used everything I learned as a life coach to rebuild my architecture career. I didn't have enough belief in myself, and the people around me didn't have enough belief that I could actually go out and launch a coaching business. The coaching organization that I got trained in did, but I didn't. So I couldn't take that step. And so I did use it to rebuild my career. I ended up landing as using the techniques. I landed a six-figure salary, not having ever earned that much before, and would go on and win um, fees in somewhere between the lowest fee I ever won was like $500,000, and the best fee I ever won was $8.4 million negotiating that one, Greenfield Hospital, and would go on and do really big, significant work in our city as an architect and
Mm.
as a female architect, which was there aren't that many like me out there. But I used everything that I learned as a coach, applied to sales and marketing, applied to winning work, applied to client management, um, and it worked over and over again. So
Oh,
that
that's
that was a
awesome.
differentiator. Yeah,
So now
yeah.
one kind of follow-up question, because you got it, you say you didn't start out with, with maybe enough confidence, or, enough, or desire or ability, or whatever you want to call it, to go into coaching. And so you or went back into architecture, did that full time. But if I remember when we chatted a bit before, you started out doing coaching as a side hustle and kind of
Yep.
started to migrate in that direction. So kind of just walk us through how do you made that transition from architecture full-time, coaching side hustle, to basically coaching full-time.
Yeah. So spot on. For 8 years, it was a side hustle. And then at the end, and then the coming out of the pandemic, I was working for a firm. I was a new hire as a principal. I was co-leading an office, and I started in October. And by March, and they had told us they were completely committed to us. And by March, they closed the office and let 10 people go. And I was one
Mhm.
of those 10 because I was working for them. I've found a small firm that I chose to help mentor and work on as a contract on a contract basis, and would help use these same coaching principles. I need to field test things. I can't just take stuff that someone tells me and believe that it works. I need to try it out on the ground. And so I field tested this with a small firm. This architect had 3 contract employees, no full-time employees when I met him. And we worked together for about a year and a half. And by the end, I helped him find some 2 employees using the same techniques, and then would actually go out and come and bring in $850,000 of the work that was more than my half of what I was supposed to bring in that year, which was really all the work for the year. Working with the power of imagination, working with visualization, working with being and thinking in a certain way. And the work just came to us. And so once I'd proven to myself, oh, yeah, this works. This works in big firms. This works in small firms. This works with an established team. There's works where there's no team. That was the point where I had enough confidence in the modality to pivot and then bank my own career on it. And so there's another part of that was also after the pandemic and watching so many firms hire, fire, not just myself, but a whole bunch of people that I know. I was like, you know what? It's time to own my own future. And that was the final part, was owning my own future, being able to be self-directed, and knowing that my successful business provides for me and my family. And that's what matters. And it doesn't matter about, and I'm not dependent on other people. I'm dependent on myself. That was
No,
the final.
makes perfect sense. Now, one additional follow up is, so you make that leap, you go from coaching a side hustle to full time. Now, sometimes people have different experiences when they make the leap to go full time, and sometimes it's, hey, I'm pouring gasoline on the fire, it takes off, it does amazing. Sometimes I get out there and I realize, hey, this is a lot harder to do it full time and make a living at it. Some people take some additional evolution and adapting in that. So kind of walk us through, how did that go as you made that leap full time, and kind of where are things at today?
So yeah, I'm still in the growth mode. And I know there's a question that you asked at the end of the podcast. So I'm gonna anticipate that one. One thing I wish I had done differently was back in 2019, I had replaced about half my salary by March. That was the year that I should have gone full time. That was the year that I was ready. I had everything going. But if I look back, I wasn't ready here. I hadn't proven to myself beyond a shadow of a doubt that what I know works in business. And so, to your question, it's been building an audience, it's been getting out there and speaking and trying a whole bunch of things that early on looked really promising and didn't work. I mean, it was crickets for 3 months. It was just crickets. But then I found some tools like using a lead generation source, getting out there. I had been timid about getting in social media, and I could tell you a whole lot of stories about why. Getting out there in social media, getting in front of people, speaking, podcasting, doing all the things I'd been trained to do. But there was a part of me that held back on because I didn't want to seen because I had this professional career that I was doing, and really taking my foot was on the gas, but
Mm.
it was also on the brake. And so I had to take my foot off the brake and just say, I'm willing to be seen. I'm willing to talk about what I know. I'm willing to be judged. I'm willing to be not liked if that's what it is, so that I can succeed. Because the one thing I know for sure is I need to be uncomfortable in the interest of growth or I won't succeed. My comfort zone will not take me where I want to go. And so those are the things. So we're still in growth mode. But yeah, we're growing and we're getting, every month revenues are up. It's not where I want, well, it's not where I intend it to be yet, but we're on the right trajectory and that feels good. And what I will tell you is it's really nice to be my own boss. I'm a great boss. I work my people hard, but I'm a great boss. And that feels really good. Yeah.
No, that's awesome, and those are the great or good bosses. Long as you treat your people well, and having high expectations can lead to a successful business. So that's awesome. So
Yeah.
you stole a little bit of my thunder, which is definitely okay. But maybe I'll follow up just a little bit of the question that you started to answer, which is, what was your biggest mistake? But fill us a little bit in. What did you learn from it, or how have you applied it from making that mistake to applying that afterwards?
Yeah. It would have been 2019. And by the end of February, I'd already, like I said, made half of my salary in coaching. I'd already had generated half of the revenue. And I was too scared to step out and full transparency with whoever. So if fear stops you, fear stopped me. And then we were going through the pandemic and I stopped marketing for 2 solid years, right? That was not a good business decision. My skill and my gift is being in front of audiences. I've had it since I was 12 years old. I was born with it. Thank you, powers that be, that I was gifted with that. And that was how I was landing clients. And I stopped. And the world pivoted to digital and I didn't, because I was scared. Again, back to that not wanting to be seen on social media. Oh my God, how am I going to do this? It's not that I was afraid of the tech from an intellectual standpoint. It was just from how am I going to do single parenting, full-time professional career, and all of that pivot that everybody needed to do. And so the shift was deciding to bite the bullet that actually having my future in somebody else's hands wasn't worth it anymore. And that made it worth the risk of getting out and being seen. But so some of us as entrepreneurs, that's the biggest hang up, is like actually just allowing ourselves to be seen. I'm an introvert and I've got, 30 years in a career that doesn't look like life coaching. Secret, they're exactly the same. Designing a life is exactly the same as designing a building. That's why I fell in love with it, was I was like, oh, I have 2 Ivy League degrees in this. I'm just applying it, instead of applying it to a building, it's applying it to somebody's life. But the process is the same. We take an idea, we bring it into form. The question is the how. The how is different in the 2 arenas, architecture versus life, but not that different. And so, yeah, so that, if I look back, that would be the moment of regret. If I think back, it was March of 2019, that if I just kept my foot on the gas and I just kept speaking, everything would have taken off.
No. Well, sounds like a great, an easy mistake to make. Having the fear of whether or not you should keep the foot on the gas or whether or not you need to, take a bit of a breather, and definitely is a good mistake to learn from as well. So, well, with that, now we're going to go to the second question, which is, now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and it's hard to come up with just one. Find someone, and the one I would say is this one: find a mentor, whether you're paying for it or whether there's someone that's ahead of you that will do it on a voluntary basis. But find someone that is modeling the kind of success you want, secure their advice, and do what they tell you. And do it despite the fact that you're uncomfortable. You may not know how. It's going to require you to grow, but all those things are necessary if you're a new entrepreneur. The person that was an employee, no matter how entrepreneurial an employee, is not the same as the person who is an employer and who's running a business. And you need to make that transformation. And that's where getting really good advice, having good wisdom, having good mentorship can make the difference between that journey being a really difficult, rocky one where you're stumbling in the dark, hoping to get there, or you can see a path and that it's possible. And you have someone to believe in you on those days when it's hard, because I promise you it will be. There will be sleepless nights. You'll be wondering where the money comes from, because every early entrepreneur is doing that. Those sleepless, you have somebody that's believing you and can coach you through or talk you through those days of doubt so that you can keep going until it's taking off and you can have the success that you deserve.
No, I think that's definitely a great takeaway and a great piece of advice. So, well, now as we do wrap up, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, best way to reach out to me is just email me at tarabrown@taralbrown.com, and we will talk. I do have an abundance ebook if someone's interested, giftfromtara.com/abundance. If you want to help really work on your mindset, best way to get in touch with me though is that email. Absolutely.
Awesome. We'll definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business. If nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again, Tara, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And on that note, if you along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Thank you again, Tara, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin. It's been a treat.